Welcome to Wars and Wisdom, a series designed to educate, provoke insight and inspire a deeper understanding and perspective. Now here's your host, Sam.
Welcome to Wars and Wisdom. My name's Sam, and I'm going to be the host of this series. Now, probably by first glance, you're thinking that this series is going to be me talking about stories of the war and the wisdom that I have possibly acquired. You're not wrong in that. However, when I talk about the wars, I'm talking about the wars that I have personally fought in my own mind, have fought in my own life, have fought with people against, and situations that I have gained incredible wisdom from. I realized not long ago that there are a lot of situations that I've gone through in my life that, quote unquote, are not normal, that a lot of people have not necessarily experienced and gone through and had to work through and heal from. And in turn, it's given me a lot of insight and a lot of perspective. Over time, a lot of people have come to me when they have had issues, when they wanted advice, when they wanted to see things from a different perspective. And I realized that because I had been through all the things that I had, I was able to give that. And we finally got to a place where we thought, oh, actually, that might actually be really helpful for people, especially at a time when healthcare costs are extremely expensive. Therapy is extremely expensive. A lot of people are turning to AI. A lot of people are turning to holistic therapies. A lot of people are turning to a lot of different modalities because they want answers and insight and they want to gain perspective and knowledge, but everything is expensive AF right now. So I totally get it. So I am here to create a series that talks about the wisdom and insight and knowledge I have acquired from walking through the fires of my own personal life and journey, and to come out on the other side to share them with you, because I truly feel like that is one of the main reasons why I went through all of the destruction that has happened in my life, so that I can give those insights and perspectives to people who either may go through it, are going through it, or who may be able to help somebody that is going through it. So a little bit about me so we can get a little bit more acquainted with one another. My name's Sam. I'm a spiritual life coach. I'm an aura reader. I have a background working in mental health and eating disorders. I used to be an esthetician working in the skincare industry. I'm a creator. I'm a writer. I'm an author. I'm an inventor. I do a lot of things. I love creative shit. I'm a lover of interior design. I love animals. Few fun facts about me when I was a little kid. I used to love Gushers. They were one of my favorite snacks. I used to love to collect Pogs, Beanie Babies, Hanson, Spice Girls, watching Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the Doodle Bear, one of my favorite toys as a kid. I also, too, loved Mary-Kate and Ashley. They were my go-to when I needed to solve crimes as a kid. I don't watch these true crime shows. When I was a kid, I was way ahead of the game. I was watching true crime with Mary-Kate and Ashley. That is the length of my true crime that it goes. So, without further ado, welcome back to Wars and Wisdom. On today's episode, I want to talk about attachments. And I want to talk about how attachment issues, I don't like the word issues, but we're just going to use it for the sake of this series, how they can pop up in your life unbeknownst to you without realizing it. And I want to start off by telling you a story about my childhood and how this carried on into my adult life, because I think once I explain it in this story format, it's going to make a lot more sense why certain behaviors can pop up for you specifically in your specific situation. Because I think when it comes to learning and understanding psychological matters, if you are able to apply it to different scenarios that are playing out in your life, you are more likely going to retain it. You're going to be able to recognize it, and you're going to be able to break certain patterns or do things differently. So in my childhood, I had a very unique situation happen to me. So I grew up in a very rural area in Pennsylvania, and not rural in the sense that there was nothing around. There were things around, there were things to do, but rural enough that oftentimes people would come to the area, live for a little bit, and then move on to a different area. So throughout my childhood, I had many friends and I had lots of acquaintances, but I was always the type to have one solid best friend. Like I always just found comfort in having one best friend that I could tell everything to, that I could trust and do things with. So when I was in kindergarten up until sixth grade, each one of my friends that I had, and this was my best friend in kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, and sixth grades. Notice how I mentioned every single grade except for fifth grade. At the end of the year, after I had gotten so close to these friends, they ended up moving away out of the area. And when I was in elementary school, going up to sixth grade, this was the early to late 90s that this length of time went on. So this was before cell phones. I still remember my sister is a bit older than me, and this was around the time where she had her car phone. And I remember that they would plug into the cigarette lighters in cars. So this was before cell phones. This was before the age of social media. So we just had landlines. So you can imagine that when these friendships moved away, like they were gone. And yes, you could have picked up the landline and called, but anybody who has ever been in a long distance friendship, relationship, what have you, will tell you that being in person as opposed to trying to do stuff long distance, it's just not the same. And oftentimes it's really hard to maintain. It's a struggle. And some relationships don't make it after they go long distance. So you can imagine that when these friendships moved away, they were gone. So I would inherently form these intense bonds with my friends when I was little. And then at the end of the year, it was, okay, bye. And then somebody new would come into the picture. And then the same thing kept on repeating. And there was also a unique situation too in my life where, at no fault to my parents, because this was just how it was, but I had a best friend that I would play softball with in the summer times. And because we lived about 15, 20 minutes away from each other, we did not go to the same school system. So we would get together and spend the entire summer together, being close, having a great time, going to concerts, doing all these fun things. And, her family was like a second family to mine. And then come the beginning of the school year, we didn't see each other until summer again. So you can see how this would create a little bit of attachment issues. I say the words a little a bit, but no, it created a lot of attachment issues. And again, this took place during the early to late 90s. So talking about attachment issues, talking about mental health, talking about anxiety, PTSD, all these different things, this was not a thing. Like we did not have these conversations. So I could imagine that, like, as a child, I'm thinking in my brain, what did I do wrong? Like, why are these people constantly leaving my life, and having anxiety and having this fear that the next person that's going to come into my life is going to leave. So you can see where this started to stem from a very early age for me. Now, with that being said, how I want to apply this to your situation, your scenario, if the whole thing with friendships did not necessarily happen to you like it did to me, with online dating, I don't think people realize the destruction that ghosting is doing to people in their minds, in their psyche, in the ways that they are forming attachments with people. When I was first introduced to online dating, I remember I had just moved into the city and I was not even thinking about dating. It was not on my radar. And we had a friend of a friend who had met somebody online. They kept on talking about how great it was, and they were just, enticing me, you should do it, you should do it. So I went into it with a good story to kind of lean into it. I'm like, okay, like, we'll give it a shot. We'll see how it goes. So I start going on a few dates with somebody and we're really hitting it off. Like I'm thinking, I enjoy their company. We get along great. We can laugh together. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like this happened fairly quickly. And a few days later, all of a sudden, this person was gone. And I did not realize it at the time that ghosting was a thing, that this was completely quote unquote acceptable in the dating room. And when I talk about that, the reason why I'm laughing is because, again, let's drive this back to what I discussed earlier with me being from a small town. If you even attempt to just stop talking to somebody, more than likely you're going to run into them at the grocery store, or you're going to bump into a friend of a friend who's going to ask you, hey, what happened? Like, that's not a thing. So me just being introduced to that, I was like, oh, this is a whole different world that like, I don't even operate on this. And I don't even think that I could get used to this for a moment. But that is a thing that happens to a lot of people where you go out on a few dates, you feel like everything is going fine, or you're talking to somebody and you're starting to invest in that relationship. And when I talk about invest, I'm talking about feelings, I'm talking about emotions, I'm talking about, yes, the financial aspect, but like also your time and energy. To me, all of that is investment. And people get ghosted all of the time, all of the time. And it really makes me wonder how many people are aware of what this is possibly creating for them. Because I'll never forget when I was probably in about, I want to say like seventh grade, when I moved into seventh grade and I had met a friend that I really got along with and really, really connected and bonded with. I remember like just being in that loop of this friendship is going to go away. And really, I think exhibiting behaviors of like fear, of anxiety, of not wanting to do or say something that would like potentially mess up the friendship. And I think that that is truly what is going to happen to people, if it's not already happening to people, when they finally do meet somebody that is stable, that is going to hang around, that is, not going anywhere, that is going to openly communicate with them. They are going to start to exhibit these behaviors of feeling anxiety and overwhelmed that this person is just going to up and leave their life because everything that they had experienced up until this point. And it's completely normal for these people to feel that from what they are experiencing from online dating. So I just want you to be aware of that. If you have experienced that, then there is a high chance that you are more than likely exhibiting these behaviors towards a future relationship, or perhaps a relationship or friendship that you're in now, because there is Bumble for friendships. Like, I know that there are different categories that you can use it for. There are all different scenarios that you can use for either relationships, romantic, platonic friendships, what have you. So really think about that for a moment. Like, has this happened to you? Are you potentially not knowing that you are doing this because of experiences that you had in the past. Because I think once people recognize that, then they could start to uncover like, oh, okay, that is why I'm doing that. And perhaps that's what I need to work on, because that is what's creating this loop. And I can rest assured knowing I could pinpoint where it's stemming from and start to work through, hey, it was never me. It was the circumstance that happened. And I need to work through and understand that and be able to navigate that moving forward. So I really just wanted to have this light discussion on attachment, where it could possibly be stemming from for you, and to not be so hard on yourself if you are exhibiting behaviors, because there is probably a reason where it's coming from. And once you understand that, then you could start to cultivate that self-acceptance, that understanding for yourself, and be able to explain that to somebody else if they are seeing it on their end and not understanding it. Because I think that that is one of the core reasons why there are so many arguments, so many fights, so many disagreements, is because the lack of understanding. Because we absolutely cannot try to attempt to understand one another if we cannot understand ourselves first and foremost. Like, that needs to happen first before we try and understand one another, because then we're just going to go back and forth and never have the actual answer to what is happening and what it's stemming from. So I really hope that this episode gave you some insight as to where this is possibly stemming from for you, how you can pinpoint it, and how you can move forward in trying to understand it and make changes to break patterns, break cycles, and really start to, have a little bit of compassion for yourself if you have gone through this and don't realize that there are things that stemmed from you experiencing this. So thank you for tuning in. I hope this episode helped. Stay tuned for our next one.